And here we go. This is TechBite number 7, and it's all about presentations. This is the first part, and there's going to be a part 2 for a specific Google Slides and Google and PowerPoint tips. So the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about what makes a good presentation. And one of the things I used to teach once upon a time was the 4 principles of design. And even though things have changed, these principles still apply today. And I do a short version. There's more principles of design, but the 4 that I'm going to talk about are the 4 that are highlighted in the non-designer's web book for designing. So these 4 rules are that you should pay attention to: alignment, proximity, repetition, and contrast. And right now I didn't put it in the right order, but if you want to remember these rules, you can remember it by saying CRAP, because it's CRAP, contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. But anyway, alignment is where the text goes. It's the way the text is organized horizontally and vertically. And you can have a left justified, a right justified, or a centered text. Normally, when you're doing presentations or when you're posting things online, you want to keep it left aligned, because as a general rule, we are taught and we learn to read from left to right. And that makes sense to our brain because that's what we learned. That text is going to go from left to right. So we're going to tend to look for the beginning of the text to the left. When you put it in the center, when you align the text in the center, the left side is no longer straight. It's like jagged, which makes the reader have a harder time finding where to start to read each line. If you're doing poetry, for example, you can do center align. You can break these rules with a purpose. Like if there's a specific reason why you want to break the rule, go ahead and break it. But otherwise, stick to the rules because it makes your content easier to understand. So this is alignment. This is not alignment. In one, it's easy to see how the information goes from top to bottom, from left to right. In this case, we are not quite sure which one are we supposed to read first. This is not alignment either. And in this case, it's specifically confusing because the text that is further to the left is the last line. So you're reading it kind of backwards, and it's confusing. It looks lousy. I'm begging you, please. So it should go, please, I'm begging you. It looks lousy and it's confusing. Next is proximity. So proximity is a rule. I always have had a harder time explaining this one, but essentially it says that elements that are in close proximity, so close to each other, are generally put together like that because they're related to each other. So if you want to put things that make sense together, put them in close proximity. When you want to talk about something different, allow a little bit more distance, so to separate the topics. So what does that look like? For example, here you can see the bullet is next to the text. That means that they go together. This bullet identifies the beginning of the first idea. The next bullet identifies the beginning of the next idea. For example, in this case, the elements are not close to each other, so your brain tends to think, well, these things are not related. Here, however, you can see that there are different even sizes of bullets because one item is dependent on another item. But between the first bullet, the blue bullet, and the second one, there's a space. So we could say that maybe they are going to be two different ideas from the same topic. Repetition is something that I truly believe when I used to teach, I taught this in elementary, and kids got all excited about all the colors of the backgrounds and all the things and all the different designs, and each slide would be different. And each slide, like one was blue, one was red, one was orange, and they had all these designs and fonts. And it was very distracting. So what repetition tries to say is that if you want the audience to focus on what you want to say, you want to keep certain items repeated so that the viewer is not distracted by them. So, for example, in this case, you can see that the certain things, certain elements are repeated in this presentation. For example, here I can totally notice that something bad happened, or something changed. There's a point to be made, because this doesn't look like anything like the other slides. So what elements in the slide were the ones that were repeated? Well, you had a logo, you have fonts, you have colors, placement. For example, the logo is always at the top left. The titles are blue. They're a certain size. The text is a certain size, a certain color, is black, and so on and so forth. Next is contrast. So contrast is very important for trying to be respectful to your viewers, and also making sure that they can actually get the information that you're putting, because it's easy to find. So contrast helps establishing the hierarchy of your information, and it can be achieved by changing the colors, manipulating the characteristics of your elements. It helps also establish the focal point. What is it that I'm looking at? So, for example, in this slide, you can see that at the top there is not enough contrast, and one object is on top of the other. So it is not very friendly. The text in the middle, you can see is yellow, and it makes it very hard to see against the white. And the black text over the picture is almost invisible, because there isn't enough contrast. Not only that, but if we have somebody in your audience that is colorblind, um, the choosing of the colors is very, very important, because we want people to be able to see our information. So that's it. Those are the 4 rules of basic design: alignment, proximity, repetition, and contrast. And if you pay attention to those, for the most part, your presentation is going to be really good. The next part I want to talk about refers more to PowerPoint and Google Slides presentation, but if you understand the principles behind it, you can apply those to any kind of presentation that you are doing. So there are 3 things that you have to pay attention when you're presenting to an audience that is going to be watching your screen play on a projector, or on a screen that is not their computer screen. And that is this 4-6-7 rule. And essentially, it goes like this: in every slide, there should be just one topic, and in each topic, for each topic, 4 ideas at the most in each slide. You can add more slides to discuss other ideas of the topic, but don't add too many, because people won't be able to retain that much. People are just going to forget what you just said. So if you overload ideas in your slides, it's just not going to help understanding. It's going to be distracting. Every time that you can replace any of these ideas with images, do it. If you put text, the text is always competing with what you're saying, because a person cannot listen and read at the same time. So if they have to read, they can't listen to you. But if they are watching images, they will connect those images with what you're saying. So that is a much more efficient way to present. You also want to, if you're using bullets, instead of adding all the ideas at once, you can introduce one idea at a time, which is a really nice feature in slides and in PowerPoint, that you can introduce one line or bullet at the time. And finally, keep it short. Um, Less is more, actually. Keep it simple. Next is six, and these 6 and 7, actually the 6 and 7 rules apply, have to do with size. So you have a limited space in the screen or the projection area, and for people that are sitting behind or back, it's gonna, the further they are from the screen, the harder it's going to be for them to read. So the more information you put on the slide, the harder it is for those people sitting in the back to see it. So that's why the 6 rule exists. 6 words per line will keep the size at around 32, 24, whatever. So if you keep the size big for your font, it will limit to 6 words per line, which is very readable for a general area projection, more or less. Screens are bigger now, so perhaps you can go a little more, but just make sure that it's readable. And the 7 rule refers to how many lines in one slide. And again, it has to do with size. If you add more lines, in order to fit that text, it's going to have to shrink the font. So if you can reduce the amount of lines that you have on your slide, then do, because it is going to make a difference. The more lines you have, the smaller the text, hence it's harder to read. So that's it. That's the 4-6-7 rule, and I hope this was useful to you.